Welcome, everyone, to our Salon number 86. Matriarchy and Men, or Men in Matriarchy. The truth is, we can't have this world that's filled with people with a full matriarchy because we need to include everyone, and that includes men. So today, we're very excited to have Heide Goettner-Abendroth. We have yet to hear from Patricia Meakin. Patricia and Heide and Genevieve have just returned from a wonderful large conference that happened in Brighton, UK. So if and when Patricia comes, she'll be on Zoom from India. So if and when she does come, she will just join us. I'm Letitia Layson, your moderator. Our salon is hosted by Genevieve Vaughan and the International Feminists for a Gift Economy. So let me introduce Heide. Heide has been with us many times over the years, and we are just so excited to have her return again. She is a philosopher and researcher on culture and society focused on matriarchal studies. She's a mother and a grandmother, an author. She has a PhD in philosophy. She has written many books and articles. She has an institute that teaches modern matriarchal studies, both in English and in German, which runs about 2 years. So I think, Heide, is there a new one opening up in 2026? Yes. So you can go to her website, go to Hagia Academy, Hagia, and you can find out more about that. And I will have to say, it's worth the time and energy to focus. And it greatly is intertwined in what Jen does in the maternal gift economy. The two cannot really exist without the other. They are both part of who we are as maternal species. So I think I just want to stop there. Heidi's most recent initiative, which Jen is involved in, is Matriarchy Now. So we're very excited about this. She's doing an activist rallying cry, getting us all to actually do actions in our own place. But today, most importantly, often neglected and not spoken about are men in matriarchy. And I think it's really important that we have a space for that, and that Heide provides some understanding and context to be able to help us weave in the men in our lives, and maybe some insights into how we can actually shift, as Jen says, the paradigm. So welcome, Heide. We are just very excited to hear what you have to say.
Thank you, Letitia and Genevieve, for inviting me again. I had made an experience that some men, not so few today, are looking for new role models. There exist circles of men in Germany, in Switzerland, and I think in other countries also, for men who want to get rid of their patriarchal indoctrination. And they are looking for new role models. And I think how men behave in matriarchy can give them some inspiration and provide a new role model. I several times talked about men in matriarchy to give these men an idea. And I'm very glad to talk to you now about this topic. For, like as Letitia said, it's important that we can win over men who are really open to our common goal to shift the paradigm. Now I start with my paper, Men in Matriarchy. A young white man who had visited some existing matriarchies once said to me, when I asked how he had felt there, "It all feels so normal." This was my introduction. Short, but I think enough. Now I will get to the point, men in matriarchy. We can understand why everything feels so normal there if we look at the social, economic, political, and cultural patterns of these societies which still exist today. I will start with the social patterns and men's role there. In matriarchal societies, the mother line is always used as the reference for the line of descent. In such societies, people's love choices are free for both men and women, meaning that they choose their partners as they prefer and change them more frequently, because only love is valued in a relationship, not prestige or money. And these relationships last as long as the love lasts. A line of descent based on the father cannot come about or be recognized under such conditions. But the mother line is the line of birth, but the mother line as the line of birth is always obvious. This is a biological and natural basis, which is why matriarch societies are built on the mother line. However, it is not only the free love life that is notable in these societies, but also the high status of mothers. Home for everyone, women and men, is the clan of the mother line, forming a blood-related community in the clan house, where they feel safe and secure. And security is a basic human need for women and men alike. When the partners of love change, the women and children always remain in the mother's house. So there are no impoverished single mothers or impoverished wives after a divorce, and, above all, no children orphaned by separation. And men don't have to pay in divorce either, as in our society they have to do and mostly don't do. This is because in matriarch societies, the other basic human need for freedom of erotic love is separate from the life of the clan. A wise arrangement, I think, which brings together both of these human needs in the best way. Men visiting women overnight is the norm. And if a man moves into the beloved woman's house, it is for a short period, not usually for long. The model of the nuclear family, in which personal and economic security and the well-being of the children are dependent on the romantic love between two people that is supposed to last forever, is an absurd idea and puts a burden on both of the two partners. Fortunately, it does not exist in matriarchal societies. There is no idea, no concept, or recognition of biological fatherhood, which was historically enforced by violence and control over women, and is still upheld today by moral pressure and structural violence. This system means monogamy for women, but not at all for men, and its sole purpose is to create or enforce the biological fatherline. Matriarch societies don't need a fatherline invented in that way. Instead, men in matriarch societies practice a kind of social fatherhood, which means that a woman's closest male relative is her brother, as he bears the same clan name as her children. The bond between sister and brother is very close and loving, and this connection is passed on to the sister's children. That is why true paternity is found here, namely help and support for the sister and great affection for the sister's children, without any claim to power. The matriarchal Minangkabau of Indonesia say that a caring man is like a good mother. And the matriarchal Akan of West Africa call such nurturing men Oba Atan, that is, true mother. All right, now I will look at men's role in economy. In matriarchy, men don't own land or houses, as these are the property of the clan and passed down in the mother line from mother to daughter. The women don't actually own these either, but as matriarchs, they are the respected guardians of the clan houses and clan land. Men of our society often find such ownership structures surprising, because almost all property worldwide is owned by males. In fact, the UN has published for information to this by the Women's Watch worldwide reports, which clearly show that poverty is a female situation in patriarchal societies. Now I would like to quote some men from matriarchies to show how they view the matriarchal ownership relations. These examples are taken from ethnological literature and also from personal conversation. The Minangkabau are a still thriving matriarchal people in Sumatra with more than 6 million inhabitants. A man from the Minangkabau said, as it is reported in a film, "It is good that the land and houses belong to women, because they take care of the old ones, also of me when I am sick and old." This opinion is interesting, for it means that the care performed by women has a value that is visible and recognized economically by men. In patriarchal societies, these services are provided free of charge by women, leading to their global empowerment. Here is another quote from the Tuareg people living in the Sahara Desert, and the traditional culture of the Tuareg is also matriarchal. Here, the men give everything they acquire by their long-distance caravan trade to the women in the tents. They keep nothing for themselves. A Tuareg man's explanation for why they do this is, "It is necessary for the women to have everything because they care for our children, who are the future of our clans and communities, and these must survive at all costs." That means the difficult survival in the desert. You see that matriarchal men don't think of themselves, but rather of a larger concept of their communities and clans, and of life in general. And life has a high value. Now, a statement by a matriarchal man who worked as a day laborer in Venezuela. Of course, he also came across patriarchal men at his workplace, and when they learned that he was handing over his wage to his clan mother, one of the patriarchal men said, "What? You are giving all your money to your mom?" The matriarchal man answered, "Yes, whom else should I give it to?" As you can see, this is a completely different mindset, a different way of thinking to the one we are familiar with. In those matriarchal cultures where the men are responsible for the farming, for example in Juchitán in western Mexico and with the Hopi in Arizona, they give all the harvested crops to the women. The women process this, make food from it, and in turn feed the whole clan. With the Hopi, there is a deeply spiritual attitude behind this. When the matriarchal men sow the crops, they worship Mother Earth. With every handful of corn which they insert into the soil, they kneel down and worship the earth. This is a male affair, which means making Mother Earth fertile with erotic love. But the harvest is handed over to the women. The men say that the offspring of Mother Earth, that is the corn cobs and everything that grows, which is regarded as her children, must be in the hands of the women, because children belong to women. This is quite an interesting view of economy, which means that the economy is linked to spiritual principles. Additionally, I would like to hint at another interesting structure of matriarchal economy. It is split in a female sphere and a male sphere. This division is fixed in an individual society, but it is not essentialist because it changes from one society to another. Let me give you a few examples. In the Mozo society of Southwest China, the women do the gardening and farming, and the men do the fishing and long-distance trade, formerly on horseback. However, among the Juchitan people, the men do the farming and the women the trading, including long-distance trade. I could go on giving such examples to make it clear that there is no such thing as typical men's work and typical women's work in matriarchy. It changes from one society to another, but the economy always is divided in two halves and shared between the sexes. I am often asked why this is the case. They do it because this ensures that the contribution made by each sex is clearly visible, and neither can exploit the other. In patriarchy, however, the economy and the work of women are made invisible and are therefore extremely exploited. This complementary economy in matriarch societies is organized on an equal footing, and no work is considered superior or inferior than the other. They practice complementary cooperation in economic terms. Let's have a look at the men's role in matriarchal politics. As women hold the people together by the mother line in the clan and also play an important role economically, it looks as if they are more dominant in matriarchal societies. But this is balanced out by certain political patterns. Politics are carried out through councils, where all decisions are made by consensus. The people have clan councils in the houses, village councils and town councils in the settlements, and regional councils for the regions they live in. Matriarchies don't go beyond a region, which can be small or large, quite large even, including one or several tribes, but they never form states. States, as an abstract form, forcing people together who are not related among each other, started with patriarchy historically. They came into being by conquest and are fundamentally hierarchical. In a matriarchal council, everyone sits together and people talk and listen to each other. The matriarch has no more say than the others. She is a facilitator of the clan council and ensures that a joint decision is reached by consensus. However, it is the men who coordinate the bigger meetings in the case of the village and town councils, and also for the regional councils. But they are not the decision makers. They are only the delegates or speakers of their matriarchal clans and pass on the decisions their communities have made. They share these decisions as representatives of their clans or settlements and are responsible to their clans and settlements for the information discussed at the council meetings. This means that policies go from the clan house to the more comprehensive political bodies. In other words, it is grassroots politics. In this process, the men have important roles. but not as representatives of their own ego or their ambition or their lust for power. Rather, they are representatives of their clans, that means of their mothers and sisters, by whom they have been elected. This role gives them dignity and honor. They are the coordinators of the decisions made in all the clan houses. Included in this role is their task as peacemakers, that is, using diverse peace skills in order to resolve conflicts by negotiation and without violence. The virtues which those men should have are patience, justice, self-control, forgiveness and not repaying evil with evil, furthermore eloquence and commitment for the community. And in this way there are role models for younger men and boys. But if they exceed their duty of representation or even decide independently, they are immediately deposed. In other words, they are elected or dismissed, depending on how they fulfill their role as the spokesperson for the clan. This signifies great responsibility for the men, and a man who performs this task well is held in high esteem, but he has no power. In matriarchy, no one person has power over another, and this system of consensus building guarantees that it stays that way. The responsibility of men in matriarchies also means that they are the first-line defenders of their culture and ethnicity in the event of patriarchal attacks and violence against their societies. This is well documented from many matriarchal societies, especially from the Iroquoian men in their long-term 200 years defense against the warlike pressure of the invasion of the European whites. The Iroquois were a classically matriarchal society in their history and have been described as one of the first of such societies. Their politics also included a special rule. They had men's councils, but the women's councils had to approve what the men's councils had decided. This meant that the women's councils had the last word on the matters the men had decided. But this was not humiliating for the men. In fact, the Iroquois people explained the reason themselves. They say, women are responsible for the children, the future of society, and must therefore have the last word. Iroquois women even had the right to decide on matters of war and peace. That means mothers decided if they want to send their sons to war, and sisters decided for their brothers, whom they don't want to lose. Now let us look at the cultural patterns and the role of men there. Since women and men work in different spheres in the economy and have different roles in politics, this has some effects on the cultural level of beliefs and rituals. For example, among the Hopi, the men perform the farming rituals because they are the farmers. The women perform the clan rituals and ceremonies of life stages. In other words, the rituals are different depending on which sex acts in which sphere. So there are always female and male priesthoods in matriarchies. They have different tasks and roles depending on their position. However, the worldview is female-centered. The universe is the great creator goddess, and Mother Earth is the all-encompassing giver of life. But a worldview in which Mother Earth brings forth everything is not a problem for matriarchal men, as they are also fed by her. We are familiar with a Christian God who reigns through punishment and violence and thereby exercises power. To the contrary, in the female-centered worldview, Mother Earth does not exercise power, but she brings forth, nurtures, and supports all humans and all forms of life. Sometimes the question is raised how men do feel in a worldview with great and powerful female deities. Do they lack the opportunity to identify with the divine? I don't think so. They find such identification in important male characters. For every all-embracing mother goddess has divine daughters and divine sons. These younger female and male characters exist in matriarchal mythology, and they fill the sacred panoramas. We often can find the divine sister-brother pair who created humanity, or the character of the hero of the goddess who makes a journey through the other world, bringing back wisdom and new significant rituals. But the mother goddess, that is Mother Nature, remains the all-encompassing whole. This is reflected in a saying of the matriarchal Minangkabau, Mother Nature is our teacher. And this goes for women and men alike. So much for the men in matriarchy. What can we learn from this for our situation today? I can make only a short hint about that. At first, I think it is about rediscovering a complementary relationship between the sexes on an equal footing. It is neither about brotherhood in men's clubs, which wield power over others, nor it is about exclusive sisterhood, which can become quite narrow. But rather it is sister and brotherhood, with mutual respect and support. At the same time, mothers should be at the center without ruling, for it is they who are holding them all together. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Heidi. That was really wonderful with some great.
Please allow me just to switch on a light in my room. It's so dark.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
I will be back in a second.
Okay, great. Okay, for our attendees and for those of you listening to the recording, Patricia has not checked in yet, so we are going to just shift and open up. If you have questions, please do put them in the chat and in the Q&A. And let me just check in with Jen and see if Jen has anything that she would like to offer before we actually open it up for questions directly. So Jen? You need to unmute, my friend.
Thank you, Heidi. It's always very heartening and inspiring to think that there is really a different way of life, and that we need to do that now. Something occurred to me that I want to ask, and that is, and it may seem kind of strange and off the subject, but is there an Oedipus complex in matriarchy?
The Oedipus complex is quite a patriarchal thing, for it is based on jealousy among men, and the mother is made into this thinking she is treated like an object, in my view. And this is so patriarchal, deeply patriarchal, that they don't have this. I never found something similar like that. I never found it. That's a good question, yeah, but it's this Oedipus complex is from some psychologists a basic pattern, but it's so deeply patriarchal, and they don't get beyond patriarchy because the knowledge about matriarchies is not known to them. It's a pity.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So that changes psychology a lot. No, psychoanalysis.
Yeah. The psychology as we know it is a child of the 19th century.
Mhm.
And it includes so many deeply rooted patriarchal patterns, also about women, also the Jungian psychology, the same, so that we have to be very careful with this. And I know that the feminists of my generation analyzed and criticized this psychology, be it Freud or Jung, very deeply. There existed deep criticism of feminists of this kind of psychology.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Heidi. Let me just check in with Liliana and see if she has a question.
Yes, we have a question from Lyra Di Laura to Heide. Are there examples of Europeans, indigenous folk communities that practice matriarchy?
In Europe,
Yes.
traditional matriarchy or new matriarchy?
No, indigenous matriarchies, indigenous or folk communities.
Yeah, thank you for the question. In my research, I didn't find a living matriarchal pattern in Europe. I didn't find it. Of course, we have some special peoples who preserve a lot of matriarchal elements, but not a full matriarchal society. For example, the Basque people preserved a lot of elements which go back to Neolithic matriarchal times. But patriarchal patterns have also crept into the society. And in Sardinian, we have the Sardinian people also preserved a lot of matriarchal elements, but these are only elements. A full matriarchal society in the full sense of the pattern, I didn't find any in Europe any longer. But you see, Europe has been patriarchalized, is a continent who has been patriarchalized since a very, very long time. Similar to China, but in Europe, patriarchy is very old.
Thank you, Heidi. Let me check in with Judith. Judith, do you have a question for Heidi?
There's a question in the chat from Melanie. She's wonders about transgendered folks or folks who do not have a strong grounding in one or the other gender, and whether they're held, how they're held in matriarchal societies, and whether there's any research or information about that.
Yeah. Yes, it's not so easy to research these things because these are very intimate things, but fortunately we have some research about this. A very good research of my friend Veronica Bennell-Thompson exists on the Juchitan people. The Juchitan people are, the Juchitecas are indigenous people in the west coast of Mexico. And she did deep research on this topic. And they have a very good way. Of course, they have transgenders because every society has people who want to transcend their sex. And they have a very good way to deal with this. As I explained, they have two different economic spheres, the female one and the male one. And if maybe a boy, for example, a boy wants to live as a woman, then he is dressed in the costume of the woman, and then he is working in the female sphere, which is the market and trade. Then he is regarded not as a woman, but as a mushe. This means a man who has transgendered into the female sphere, and he is respected as a third gender. He cannot be a full woman, but he has a special role. Most of the mushes are artists and do drawing and fine artistic work. And the same is for a woman or a girl who wants to live as a man. She is going into the men's working sphere, which is farming in the fields, and she is called a marimacha. So they have not, the transgenders are not regarded as directly men or women, but as third and fourth sex, and are well accepted in the working sphere of the other sex. So one of my friends told to me, we define sex, and not only by anatomy, but also by the working sphere. In this sense, you can see that the sex is defined by the working sphere. And the transgenders can easily change into the other working sphere and are regarded as working there, having female characteristics and so on. They can also go back. They only wearing the costume of the other sex, as women or as men, and are working there, and they are well accepted. So they have no, these transgenders must not claim and do political pressure that their rights to change over into the other sphere is respected. It is respected. It's not a problem for them. So you have no political movement of transgenders there, because the individuals can easily change into the other sphere. But what matriarchal societies do not change is the division in the two halves of society, which are defined as a male and female halves. This has to do with a worldview which is based on balance between all things in the world, also balance between male and female. And you cannot balance if you don't have two scales. You need two to balance. But the individual is free to change this sphere. This is what I can say from this research. And this is not only in Juchitán, this is the same. We know it also from North American matriarch societies, that women can go into the male sphere and become special kind of chiefs, and the other way around. It's well known that they have this. I have a very interesting information from the Cuna of Panama, also a matriarchal people. They say these Western ideas of only two sexes is very, very narrow, and the missionaries wanted to tell us this. But we have also the third and fourth genders. We have this, and this is fine for us. It's fluid. They call it, they have also a special name for those who are changing the gender roles. They call them Vigodun. The Vigodun do this, and they're well accepted in the society. Often they have special roles and special abilities and are respected. This is what I can say from the research.
I think that's really key, Heidi, that you point out that there are different identities. It's not just one word that's used for a male and a female, and you have to fit into that role. I think it's very critical. It is common, even in my limited experience with people who are of other cultures that are more accepting of this notion of this idea of transgender, where you have to actually identify as one or the other gender, is really not, it's just not acceptable. The culture itself has a more broad understanding of life,
yes,
and
also
and
of identities. Yeah. So
yes,
it's for them it's fluid, and you can always find in matriarchal societies not only two but 3 or 4 or 5 genders, just as they manage it in the different societies. But what I find very interesting, they never mutilate the body. For the body, how the body comes from the mother, it is regarded as perfect. So it's only changing the costume, changing the working sphere, and that's all. Yeah, they never would change the body, for they respect the nature. This is different from our way how transgenders today try to live. What was so interesting is that they are respected. They have no problems with this because matriarchal societies are very tolerant and they respect the richness of nature, also the richness of diverse genders.
Yes. I've mentioned before in the Filipino culture, the Tagalogs in particular have their love goddess, their fertility goddess. We don't have ancient depictions of our gods, but a modern version of what she means to the culture itself is she's embracing, and there are images of male, female, 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 a family, a male and a female, and a family with children. So she embraces all. The goddess of love and fertility embraces all of that. And I was saying to Jen the other day, I'm not familiar with any other goddesses of love that actually where we see that feeling of full embrace. Are you familiar with any of that, any gods that do that? Usually it's not depicted that way, is it, Heidi? I would love to know about
It's
that.
very interesting. But when you look at primordial goddesses, like for example the Cybele or Nut in Egypt and Cybele, they are not only, you cannot only define her by one sex or gender. Cybele is depicted as being male and female at once. She includes both. And also the primordial goddess Nut, she includes both and even more than both. So I think these primordial goddesses are manifold because they can bring forth sons and daughters and many, many beings. So they have many facets. It's interesting what you're telling about the Filipinos. It's a bit similar. Yeah.
Yes. Wonderful. Let me check in with Liliana and see if she has a question for you.
Yes, I have another question from the Q&A from an anonymous attendee. She says, I love this so much. Thank you, Heide. How can we shift to matriarchy in a nuclear family system with a husband, wife, and children? Also, what if my husband doesn't understand? I am in pain about the system that I'm in, and I am mourning the gap.
I always say, please don't try to missionize your husband. It will be in vain. And don't try to missionize your male friends. It's also in vain. If people don't want to listen to you, what you want to tell him or them by your wisdom. If they don't want to listen, you waste your energy. Talk only to people who want to listen to you. And you're right, the nuclear family is a patriarchal invention, and it's not very old. It was invented when the Industrial Revolution came up, and then the clans, which were patriarchal clans, broke apart because the industry meets the lonely worker, and behind the worker, the housewife who is caring for the lonely worker. So this invention of the nuclear family is a matter of the early Industrial Revolution, which was the beginning of the capitalist revolution. Yeah, and I cannot help to tell you that the nuclear family is not the way, cannot show us the way out. I regard it as a trap, especially as a trap for women and mothers. So what I say at this point is that we have to create communities. Matriarch societies are based on communities, the clans are communities. And I think today the communities of women are so important that women encourage and empower each other. And if they want, they can include men, if the men have a pro-social and supportive behavior, but not too early. I think our task is today at first to create communities of women which are mother-led and led by the wisdom of all women together. This is what we need, not the nuclear families. Look at the many single mothers with their children, they are left alone. Or the nuclear family, which is so narrow and puts the burden mostly on the mothers and the housewife. We have to leave these patterns. I know this is not nice, and I will not say, please leave your husband, not at all. But the way is not with nuclear family, but with women's communities, which can be the basis of maybe new matriarchal patterns.
Thank you, Heidi. Let me check with Judith and see if there is a question that Judith has found for us.
I have a brief clarification, and then I have a question. The brief clarification is for the name of the Siberian goddess that you talked about.
Yes, I can answer very quickly. It's not a Siberian goddess, it's Cybele. I do not know the English pronunciation.
Yes, Cybele.
Yeah, Cybele.
Cybele.
Cybele of Anatolia,
Oh.
Asia Minor. She is the great goddess of this region, which is a very old and rich Neolithic urban region. Well, how do you pronounce it, Letizia? Cybele?
Yeah, they say either Cybele or Chabeli.
Yeah, yes. This is what I did not do correctly.
Yes.
What's the question?
And the question is, could you tell us more about your research, about your field work, and maybe something about a place that you've been?
Well, this would be a long story. Yeah, but for me, what's most important was my research in the field with the mausoleum in southwestern China. Well, it's not so easy today to visit a matriarchal society, and I did not do it very often, for these people have a lot of problems, and they do not need us in any way. They have to, they are under so much patriarchal pressure from the outside, and when we white interested women also are visiting them, we are only maybe an additional burden to their problems. So I visited for field research, only the mausoleum, because the mausoleum invited us. If they don't invite us and don't want to have us there, I would never go to a matriarchal people. The mausoleum invited us, and it was an all-women's group which I organized by the Academy Hagia. We went there and did field research there. The reason why they wanted us there was we should publish about them. We made movies, I wrote a book about them. It's only in German, I'm sorry. And this was important for them, and we brought it back to them because they wanted to be recognized by the Han Chinese central government as a minority. They didn't have this right then. I think now they have it, but they wanted to become more known to the Han Chinese government to get the status of an acknowledged minority, which is an advantage for them. This is why they invited us. It was a political reason, and we tried to do our best to fulfill their wish. So, and the other indigenous societies which I came about was more by friends and indigenous scholars, which I met and with which whom I met and with whom I have a long-standing friendship, and I learned from them about their indigenous societies. Like Barbara Mann, the Iroquois, and Patricia Mokim about the Kazi, and Mina Elfira about the Minangkabau, and many. We invited them to our World Congresses on Modern Matriarchal Studies. There they were presenting and speaking about their own societies. And I'm working in this network of Indigenous friends since a very long time.
Wonderful. Thank you, Heidi. Liliana, let me check in with you. Do you have a question for Heidi?
Yes, I do. I have a question from Patricia Hurd. And she says, this might sound like a strange or even silly question, but it is coming from my experience that we often use terms about complex precepts without being aware that we have different definitions about it. And to be honest, I am not sure about my understanding of matriarchy. How do you define matriarchy?
Yeah, thank you. It was implicit in my presentation I gave you, but I can make it explicit in a very short term. Matriarch societies, there are mothers at the center by their features that they are organized in the mother line, and the people who are blood related in mother line live together in the mother house, the clan house. This puts mothers at the center, but not at the top. And they are, you can see this because all decisions are taken in these societies by consensus of all people, be the council small or be them broader, all decisions are taken by consensus. So this is the proof that they are really egalitarian societies. Economically, what I find very interesting, I said it several times in my lecture, in my speech, the economy and the goods which are important for life are in the hands of women, not as private ownership, but as they are the keepers or guardians of the goods of the clan for the best of everybody. And in the worldview, the female deities, the female divine is predominant, but they also have male divine figures. This is what I can say in short, what matriarchy really is. And very often you can hear in the literature, the anthropological literature, that these societies are only matrilineal. This is a reduction. For matrilineal is only the kinship line, but there are many more characteristics which I gave on the economic, cultural, and political level, which make a matriarchy, especially that the women are the keepers of the economy. This makes a matriarchy and not only a matrilineal society. They are called in university, in academia, they are called only matrilineal, and this is, in my eyes, this is an colonialist reduction. They do not want, researchers, most of them were male who coined these words, they do not want to accept that these societies are fully based on maternal values of egalitarian, of living in an egalitarian way and giving women so many possibilities to be strong. Yeah, women are not ruling there. So this is what I can describe in short, and I really critically oppose the term matrilineal, for this is a reduction. I also told just my friend from the Minangkabau, Mina Elvira, why do you accept this colonialist reduction of your own society, which only tries to reduce it on the motherline and all the others things should be in the hand of men? That's not true. All these things are in the hand of women, but they integrate women and men. They are integrated societies, not exclusive societies as patriarchy is on every level. So I hope it was clear what I understand with matriarchy.
Thank you, Heidi. Yes, you did make that very clear. And I think it's important. It's a very, very subtle nuance to understand because the Western mind is very fixed to actually do a binary twist on matriarchy and patriarchy. So when you take the time to actually identify that a true matriarchy is egalitarian and in all other spheres of social interaction and engagement, that they are equal, but it's always the mothers at the center with the children, and they are the ones who are the decision makers. That is, I think, a very, very difficult, nuanced concept for Westerners to accept because they're so used to seeing this contrast of only two kinds and power over.
What many people of our Western societies don't understand is that if women as mothers are at the center at the same time, I call these societies egalitarian. Then they say, oh, this cannot be egalitarian when mothers are at the center. They don't bring it together, but the explanation is easy. For mothers and women, for special the mothers, these are clan mothers in the clans, all of their relatives, they care for the egalitarian character of societies. They do this. They guarantee that all decisions are taken in consensus and all people the needs of all people are fulfilled in an egalitarian, adequate way. They care for the egalitarian character of these societies. But when you look in patriarchy, where men are at the center, they do just the contrary. They split the society, always splitting it. Women are lower, other people are lower, colored people, and so on and so on. And so they create their hierarchy. They do just the contrary what mothers in matriarch societies do.
Yes. I always share often in this, in our salons that when I was raised in my family of 5 children, 3 girls and 2 boys, none of us knew who the favorite child was. There was no favorite child because we were all supported in our unique abilities to be able to be who we are, to give to the world, and not just to myself as an individual or to my family as an individual. There was a knowing that my responsibility was to society, was to the world, and not just to my clan or not just to my council, that the children who come forward are coming forward to make life better for all, not just for some, and not just better for one, like the best person. It's for everyone to be able to be their best. And to me, that's egalitarian. That's what it means. Yeah.
They have some nice saying in matriarch societies. They say egalitarian does not mean to make all people equals, like numbers. No, the individual differences are respected. Women and men are different, young and old are different, and many people are different. We are different individuals. And they say, this diversity is richness. And just as you have described it, Letitia, a mother cares for their children in an equal way, but she is happy that they are so diverse. And this is understood as richness. Life is rich because life has a lot of diversity. And mothers treat their children with love in an equal way, that every child can develop and can unfold in the special way how she or he is. This is a prototypical behavior of mother, which is also typical for matriarch societies.
Thank you, Heidi. Let me go and see if Liliana, do you have a question for us?
Yes, from Cecile Keller. What can men do to leave the patriarchal role and pressure they are in?
Yes, they can do a lot, I think, if they want. Many don't want, because they have their privileges in patriarchy and their lust for power, domination, and so on. You cannot help them. But there are more and more younger men today who are not happy with their patriarchal role model, which they should play. They don't want to become patriarchal men in this sense. And there exists really a movement of men who want to get rid of this patriarchal education and indoctrination. They want to become different. And I know from some friends of Switzerland and in Germany, there exist cycles of men who come together and try to get rid of all this patriarchal, violent indoctrination and want to become better humans. And these cycles, these circles, I wanted to say circles, there are many circles of men, and this is growing. They are well connected, and they make the experience to go out of this patriarchal pressure of the role model, how a man should be. This is one way. Another way about which I know is in communities. There exists an international worldwide movement of community building. And in these communities, women and men are together, working together. They want to find new ways how we can do our personal interaction, not in these patriarchal role models. And these men also try to get rid of all these patriarchal, hierarchical, superior and inferior models and so on. There are also men who try to be different. I'm sometimes invited by these communities or give interviews to these circles of men who want to know about a different role model. And I try to give them the matriarchal role model of matriarchal men to them. And I hope they will really develop. These men are interesting and they are on the way to change themselves and to change a little bit patriarchy.
Wonderful. Thank you, Heidi. Judith, do you have another question for us?
Luisa Vicinelli has a nice question in the chat. Sorry.
Patricia asks about the difference between teaching in freedom and missionizing, and how we can balance and understand and maintain that difference.
You're missionizing when people don't want to listen to you and you, with soft psychological force, them to listen. This is missionizing. When you trap them and teach them against their will. But if they want to listen, you can offer your wisdom, you can offer that you want to talk about a completely different social model, which is called matriarchy. And when they say, oh, interesting, then you can continue, then you are teaching. I do it only, I wouldn't never start to missionize a person who don't want to listen. You waste your energy and make the other person angry. So when I was teaching at the Academia Hagia, or when I give lectures, I openly say it's about matriarchy. And the people who come, they want to know and they want to listen. So I can do it. This is teaching. But I always say to my students, don't try to missionize your husband, your good friends, if they don't want to listen. They are sad, or they love the husband and the good friends. I say, okay, you will find other friends, maybe new friends who want to listen, and then you can teach. It's a difference.
Yes. Our friend Sherry Mitchell actually wants to send her regards to you, Heidi. But this weekend in her community, she's holding the space for a men's group. And this is a men's group that actually is doing what you're actually saying is necessary and needed to do, where they get together and they, when she described it to me, it had a little bit of feeling. I felt that it was very much akin to what women were doing in the 60s of consciousness raising. Men are consciousness raising of what it is to be a matriarchal man, you know, finding their common wounds, being able to actually talk about their challenges, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm very hopeful that there are enclaves of these men who are choosing to actually have this, again, connection that is in many ways not accepted in patriarchal culture to be that vulnerable and intimate with other men.
Yeah, thank you. This is very, very nice. I'm very happy to hear this. When we had my friends made a big festival in the Netherlands called Matriarchy for Future. There it was for women, and there they also included a men's group and a men's council. And the men, I know some of them, these are really men who want to develop into the matriarchal role model of men. They were together and talked about their problems and how to go on. And this space was only reserved for them. And I think this is really necessary. It's right. Now the men begin with consciousness raising. Women are a little bit far more advanced. But this is matriarchal. Women take the lead, but not with power, but with a soft guiding them to a different role model. And when we women are leading this way, men are following. And we experience this. It was at the festival where also Genevieve was speaking. It was nice that the men had their space, and this is necessary. They don't want, not every man want to become a patriarchal man and react with violence. And so when they are raised as boys by the mothers, they are forced to switch over into the other patriarchal model, but not every boy wants this. Genevieve is always talking about this switch, which is hard for boys. So we have to care for their boys that they don't lose their capacity to be soft and to be give and to be matriarchal, possibly matriarchal men.
Jen, did you want to offer something there?
Well, yes, I think it's important that men can take care of children, because that allows them to do what mothers do and increases their own maternal way. So that how about in matriarchal societies, men taking care of children, or like the mother's brother and that kind of thing.
Yes. And what I find interesting, that paternity in patriarchal society is not always good, not at all. Sometimes violent in the families. But what I could see and learn about paternity in matriarchal society, these mothers, brothers are so soft, and the children love them. So no need for the biological father, because he comes in visiting marriage and goes again. Maybe he plays sometimes with the children, but he is a guest. He's not the father. The real father for their emotional development is a mother's brother. And he is venerated and loved by the children, and he also loves the children. Because you see, fatherhood is not based on power and not based on jurisdiction. It's only a fatherhood which can develop by the feeling of the community, the feeling for the sisters, the feeling for the sisters' children. It's not an how to say this. It's a fatherhood that can develop on its own, on the best values which are in a man, and it's not based on jurisdiction and power plays.
Yeah, they don't lose the model of the mother when they're growing up.
Yeah.
They continue to keep it and don't become something other. The dominator.
Yeah. And what Jen brought up, brothers or fathers actually caring for children. And there was an article that was published about a group in New York of one father who was caring for his child in his buggy, and he would take her around Central Park. And he put a call out to any of his other friends who wanted to bring their children. And so now they have this big group where all these fathers are bringing their children in their buggies and walking and talking and caring for their children. So there are things that are shifting and changing that we may not see the subtle changes, but it was a beautiful story. And yes, so they they love to come together, and even when it's raining, they'll go to like a shopping center indoors and walk with their children so that their wives have time to do what they need to do. So yes, sharing responsibility. This is a Western way of, creating these opportunities for egalitarian caring for family.
May I add some
Yes.
nice personal anecdote? I have 2 daughters and a son. And my son was never raised in a way, you must become a real man. No one said this to him. Not at all me, not his grandmother, and not his father. His father was a very cooperative man. So he never switched over to the patriarchal model. In my eyes, he has some characteristics of a matriarchal man, and he has a family and he has 3 daughters, and he loves his daughters overall. He's so happy that he has daughters. I think he has these characteristics of caring and listening, and it's only my personal example, but as you said, Letitia, there are so many men who are actively already changing the role and want to be caring men and live their capacity to give. They do it.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Let me check in with Liliana and see if there's another question there.
Yes, I have a question from Lyra Delora. How are male-designed tasks handled in matriarchies? For example, self-defense and the military. How is this coercive power rematriated? I can ask it again.
Yes, please.
Okay. How are male-designated tasks handled in matriarchies? For example, self-defense and military. How is this coercive power rematriated?
Letitia, could you help me to understand this question better if you explain it to me?
So what she's asking is, in matriarchies, this the male designated role of military and protection, defensive role, it tends to be a coercive power. And how can that be rematriated? That perspective of those roles be rematriated.
Yes, I can only speak about the examples which I know. And we know that the Iroquois men defended their society for about 200 years. And of course, they had to create a military power to defend their society. And they were warriors. What I know from the history, the women had to agree that they go to war. But when the pressure from the invasion of the whites became always harder, the women agreed. But these warriors, of course, they formed their military body.
¿Saben cómo sacarlo?
Sorry. They formed their military bodies and had to fight. But they fought for their society. They didn't fight for power over other people. This is a big difference. And if the pressure from the white or the problem would disappear, they would go back and drop all these warrior-like attitudes. This is known from the earlier development of military with the Iroquois, when they had only feuds with other tribes about grazing grounds or whatsoever. As soon as the problem was dissolved or was fixed, these young men who mounted the feuds went back and were quite normal men again, as every man in a matriarchal society. But when the problem continues and continues, like the invasion of the European whites and the European military over 200 years with the Iroquois, then they could not stop. They had to continue to be warriors and to fight for the freedom and their own culture. And this was difficult for the matriarchal society because it changed the patterns of a matriarchal society from within. but not at will from the men. They were the defenders of their culture and their people, not from within. And never they formed a kind of armies who are dedicated to go to war. They had no regular armies as standing military, which only wait to make the next war because the military is there. This is completely different. This is what patriarchal conquest societies do. They have their standing military who goes to war always against the next and the next peoples to broaden the empire. This is a standing army and military. The Iroquoian self-defense wars were completely different. These were not, how to say, not a standing army of professional soldiers, even if they had to be good, but it comes from the people themselves, the male part of the people, to defend their society and do like as they could do. Sometimes this situation is called, when you have a revolution from the peasants, also then the peasants also in Europe, we had this, the peasants also become warriors, but they are not professional troops. They are only peasant warriors defending their rights of their community and so on. And this is a big difference. For a patriarchal society defends itself by a standing army of professional warriors. Matriarchal societies must do it when the situation is hard for them, but it's not their choice. And it's not the choice of these men. And these men understand themselves, even when they are going to war, as members of their matriarchal society, and not like in patriarchy, where military often is like a state within the state, with a special situation, a special role. This is also a difference.
Thank you, Heidi. Yeah, I think it's very important to note that it is a defensive skill. It's not an aggressive skill. There's not the colonizing mentality that's involved. When I worked with my chi master, he said that when they practiced their martial arts, he said, you practice so that you have the skill to create no suffering. As a Buddhist, you create no suffering, which means that there's a one-strike kill. You're not doing it to kill people, but you're doing it like a surgeon to be, to be able, if you're defending, to stop. You want to stop people from actually harming others. So it's that place where you're not wanting to have harm. And I think that's the main thing. In patriarchies, you're always wanting to acquire and dominate. And in matriarchies, you're just allowing life to unfold.
I do not know if this question also included the other question, how can we solve the military forces today, dissolve them and going back to rematriation? Because this is a big question. I cannot answer it. I can only describe.
Oh, I was hoping you would.
Shall I say? Of course, I would love if all these military patriarchal forces would be dissolved. I would love it, but I do not know how to do it at the moment. It's not easy to answer. I think it is, but this is only an idea. It becomes more and more absurd, these wars. And the overkill capacity becomes more and more absurd. It's so absurd that it even cannot be used. This is completely absurd. And I hope that patriarchy develops in a completely deep absurdity so that it dissolves itself.
Mm-hmm.
I hope so. But I hope not at the cost of millions of lives.
May it be so, Heidi. Let me check in with Judith, and I'm checking the time because we promised Heidi that she would not have to be taking on more questions just because we didn't have Patricia here. So let's check, Judith.
Could you tell us something about your academy and the your intensive study courses?
Yes, sure. The Academy Hagia is existing since will be sorry. The Academy exists next year for 40 years. 40, not 14, 40 years. And since more than 20 years, I'm doing these study courses with the aim that the students become lecturers on modern matriarch studies and bring this topic and the word out into the world. And the study courses go through, the duration is 2 years, but in every year it's only 6 weekends, so it's not so much. 6 weekends every year, and altogether these are 12 weekends. So you have basic teaching and a basic knowledge about modern matriarchal studies. And it's followed by a final thesis, which the students are writing on their own to practice their knowledge. And then I hope they go out into the world and spread matriarchy and modern matriarchal studies. We are just starting in January 2026 with a new one in German and parallel a new one in English, an international one. We have still time to register. The deadline is October 31. You have still time to come in, to join.
Wonderful. Liliana, do you have another question? And then I'll just check in with Jen.
Okay, and I'm not sure that this person understands the concept of fathers and the matriarchy, so I'm giving that disclaimer. It's from Luisa Vicinelli. These new young men that you were talking about earlier, how do they react at the possibility of not to be fathers of their children?
That's a good question. I read it in the chat. It's really a good question.
Okay, good.
When I talk to a mixed audience, I have always these questions, and you see, then I make a differentiation between traditional matriarchal patterns, which we cannot revive, and modern matriarchal patterns, which we can invent, inspired by traditional societies. For example, in traditional matriarchal societies, you have the mother line and blood clans related by the clans which live together, related by blood relationship. I think we cannot repeat with this, we modern Western women. We have to invent new forms. And I think in this way we can invent affinity communities and come together with siblings by choice. This is more our way how we would do this. We cannot repeat blood relationship in the motherline. It's for the traditional matriarchal societies, not for our new ones, which we have to create. The same with the fatherhood. I would not tell a young man who really is a good father, you are not the father of your children. You look to your sister's children, you are the maternal uncle. He would not understand. It's typical for traditional matriarchal society who does it in a very wonderful way. But with our modern men and women, it's different. I think when young men are good fathers, then they are, in my eyes, at once biological fathers and social fathers. They have to develop the social fatherhood, and they are both. And this is a good way. We cannot go back. We cannot go back in our mentality to ignoring biological fatherhood. But we have to change the biological fatherhood into a caring and social fatherhood. Then it's fine. And young men can, if I explain it in this way. And even if we create communities, also nuclear families, we cannot simply dissolve them. But I know some communities in Germany where they integrate nuclear families, and these families are not left alone as nuclear families. They are integrated in a big community. This also changes the picture and is more adequate to the feelings of us modern women and men. In this way, we try to find a good way to create new matriarch societies which fit to our experiences and feelings.
Wonderful. I think that's a great
Yeah.
response, Heidi, because it does have to be relevant to where you are
Yes.
with your family and
Yes.
your, yes.
Yeah. We cannot make some thousand years of patriarchy not non-existent, and we are in a different point. So we have what is good, what we have learned. We have to integrate it in new matriarchal forms. Of course, we are inspired by traditional matriarchal societies, but we have to create new forms who are more adequate to our modern situation. I would like to say something to the question which was raised earlier. The question if we have matriarchies in Europe. I said, no, we don't have full matriarch societies in Europe. So especially for Europe and our Western societies, we are urged to create new matriarchal forms. It's important for us. We have to be creative in this field and at the same time respect and help traditional matriarchal societies because they are our teachers. And at the moment, we are about to create new matriarchal clans. Do you know that? It's interesting. May I tell you about this, Genevieve?
Yes, please.
Yes. And we say, yeah, mothers have to start with this and to create new matriarchal clans. And I was so happy to meet wonderful women leaders who have clans around them in this way, modern women. For example, I met the community called Motherful. They have two leaders, two wonderful women who create a modern matriarchal clan with 1,000+ single mothers around them in a big clan in a gift economy and caring for all of them. Another one is, in some respect, the Academy Hagia, because I'm not only Academy Hagia, we have a team around us and we have many connections, which I regard also in some respect as a new network clan, which is working as a network. And our dear Genevieve, with a huge network of her connections, is also a new matriarch. So,
Thank you.
and what next? And another one is another one I will mention. This is Sandra Capri, who since 20 years has connections in all over Italy, bringing women together with her sisters, her leading sisters, all over Italy. And we regard her also as a new clan mother. And we try to do our best to become more and more matriarchal and to create more and more matriarchal connections and way of life in our new clans. So it's not so hopeless that nothing is there. Of course, we miss traditional matriarchal societies in Europe, but we start with new ones in Europe, in USA, and wherever we can. And don't forget the very interesting example of Nashia, the women's village in Colombia, which is also a kind of a new matriarchal clan. They live together and they integrate men, and the clan mother is Angela Dolmetsch, who brought this all together. So they are here, the new matriarchs. This I wanted to tell you. I wish it would give you hope.
Yes, it's very wonderful. And Heidi, that's so important because we often have people wanting to know real life examples.
Yes.
Because that way communities are able to find inspiration, but also to be able to use them as examples and not have to recreate something from the ground up. That there are ways in which you can learn from your sisters and have a council of elders that actually can help, which is one of the things that Motherful does. Is Motherful, the two women actually bring in a team and they actually educate. They have a system in which they integrate other people to be able to take over more roles so that more people can be involved. And it is quite inspiring. But they are single mothers. And that's one of the things that I think they have said, was underserved, was really single mothers, especially in the United States. So it's very, very hopeful.
And of
Yes.
course, these new matriarchs, which have their clans around them, it's quite diverse how these clans look like. For example, Motherful has single mothers. We are a kind of teaching clan, and Genevieve is also different. But it doesn't matter. We start and we understand us in this way, and we want to create and go on to make it more and more matriarchal. But you're right, Letitia. When I'm asked, oh, where can I find this and where can I find a community? I say, yes, you can. You have these examples, wonderful examples. Also the women's village Nashira, or what the Kurdish women do in the Near East, also creating matriarchal patterns consciously. This is very important today. For with the community movement in which I was in contact with, most of these communities are created by men. Women are in and do a great work, but they did not reflect their traditional role models in a deep way. So it is sometimes repeated. So I'm really convinced that new matriarchal clans can only be created by mothers, by women, by elderly women, and not by men with their great utopian ideas. We have to do it. We elderly mothers, if we can do it, and younger mothers or women who can do it, should start with created women-led, mother-led communities.
Wonderful. Thank you, Heidi.
Of different kinds. They must not all look like.
Yeah.
Yes, of very different kinds. In fact, there is a group that is going to Nashira and study there for a month. So they're bringing a group of people. I think even men, if they want to come, but women and men will be going there in October at I think the 24th or towards the end of the month for an entire month to study this new modern matriarchal pattern that they have going on there as an eco village. Yeah.
And I think in these communities, the women themselves decide if they want men include or not. For each community decides on their own, on her own, on its own, how the form, how the pattern should look like. So I think the diverse community patterns will develop, but this is good. The only important thing is that these communities are created and led by women. This is the main characteristics which they should have.
And not shy away from the word matriarchy.
Yes, not at all. We all call these communities which I just mentioned, all openly name themselves matriarchal, fully matriarchal or connected with matriarchy in any way. And this is important for, sometimes women tell me, oh, this is wonderful to have ecological movement and peace movement and so on and so on. Why should we take over the term matriarchy? It might be difficult. Then I say, now we make a play in thought. Imagine you would drop the term patriarchy. How would you describe what is happening? Wars, suppression of women, exploiting of Mother Nature, all these scattered characteristics, and you cannot name it. You cannot name the whole syndrome. To name the whole syndrome, you need the name patriarchy. And this makes it more powerful than if you would list all the different characteristics. And the same goes with the word matriarchy. You can list all, care for Mother Earth, communities, and so on, and so on, and so on, all these scattered elements. And if you have not the name for it, you are in a quite weak position. So this is matriarchy. And we can recognize these elements everywhere, but these are elements for a new model, matriarchy. And this model is a complete model and not only scattered traits, scattered features. This is so important to label the whole model like we can criticize the whole model patriarchy. Therefore, the terms are important.
Jen.
Yes, and I think also capitalism is a very important part of patriarchy, and patriarchy is an important part of capitalism, which has really the opposite values of nurturing and of mothering. And it is now, you know, that there are just a few billionaires out there that are dominating everything and creating a terrible situation. So this is this is a definite, matriarchy is a definite alternative to capitalism and patriarchy combined as they are. And that's what we really need, because, you know, the world is in a terrible shape as we're going towards this kind of hell that they are creating now.
Yes. One of the things I find is that when women use the word matrifocal, gynocentric, and many other terms, they're using it because they don't want to alienate people. And a good mother uses the truth, even when it's hard, to actually say, you know, to give the fullness of an understanding and use the right word. So I agree. I think matriarchy is the word that we need to use, and not be afraid to actually, you know, we alienate people only if we have the inability to describe it to them so that they can understand what it means. In the softness of your heart and who you are being, that word is non-threatening. It's just, you know, it's a word that has deep and full meaning of a culture and a society where women and children are at the center at every sphere of life, and decisions are being made through this idea of the matriarchs making the final say, because they are the center of life. They create life. They support life. They bring life forward.
Yeah. Thank you, Letitia. And this term matriarchy has a political meaning.
Yes.
I think it's very important. Therefore, some people get so upset. Therefore, they don't want that we use it because it's political. But when we use the other terms, they are nice and matrifocal and matristic and Julanic. Many people don't understand them. They sound so artificial and so scientific. Huh? But matriarchy always is understood. When you use the term matriarchy, you will make the experience some people get very upset and angry, and others get very enthusiastic, mostly women. So it's important to use it. For the people know this word, and they feel it has a political meaning. Some feel threatened by this, which is also good, okay. And some feel really hope with it. And so I think it's important to use it really in its full meaning, as you just said, Letitia. Thank you.
Yes. And I love the notion that you brought forward, Heidi. You know, don't missionize people. So the minute that, you know, they have this really hard reaction, I just listen to what they have to say, and then I try to address whatever their issues are, but I don't try to convert them. You know, I'm not proselytizing. I'm not trying to win them over. It's really wanting people to understand, creating a relationship. We can only have a matriarchy if we have real deep connections and relationships that are effective. And you don't do that by converting people. They have to be open to understanding and to participate fully in a society that's very, very different. Yeah.
If you offer this term and this wisdom kindly, you will always find some who want to listen to you. I do it. I did it for 40 years, 40 years in the academy before already earlier. and are never missionized. And so many women wanted to know because they are longing for a different model than patriarchy. And today more and more men want to learn about a different model because the situation in our world is becoming worse by the day. So people are longing for something different. And if you don't dare to say it at the beginning, matriarchy, then describe its characteristic and say in the end, oh, this is matriarchy, then the people get it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much, Heidi, for taking the time. And we're really sorry that we were unable to have Patricia come and be with us today, but hopefully in the future she can, because Patricia is from a community of what she identifies as matrilineal and matriarchy. So we hope to have her in the future. Jen, is there anything that you would like to add?
No, thank you so much, Heidi. It's wonderful to have you with us, and always inspiring to hear what you have to say. So thanks so much.
Heidi, is there anything else you'd like to add before I just close this out by sharing some things that are upcoming in our community?
I would really thank you, Genevieve, for always inviting me again and again into the salons. And thank you, Letitia, for your wonderful facilitating. I think these salons are so important to bring the voices of women of women who have so many interesting and liberating thoughts to an audience. I'm very happy that this exists, and I wish you a good continuation until the 100th salon will come and the 200th salon will come, and so on and so on. This is my wish for you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Heidi. I also want to thank Liliana and Judith for collecting all of the comments and questions. Oftentimes, those of us who are actually on the screen don't have time to read what's being written, so it's important to have both Judith and Liliana with us. Diane and Lisa, you are in the background, but not so much. We can feel you holding us, and you do such good work to ensure that we are stable and online and bringing forward links for us. And on that thought, I hope you will come back next week and join us October the 25th. We're really pleased to have Lesline de la Madre, who will introduce her latest book, She Who Spins the Coils of Creation, Sacred Female Cosmology and the Electric Plasma, with a capital M-A, universe. So she brings forward this whole spin and idea of all of this new science bringing forward, going back to the deep ancient mother and bringing it back to our new science and where we are today. So we're looking forward to that. Registration is open for Salon number 88, the Nested World Initiative with Darshan Navarez and Lisa Reagan. That will be on November the 15th. And on our 6th annual mini conference, it's hard to believe it's been 6 years that we've been coming together. The topic is the maternal human on November the 28th with Genevieve Vaughan, Darshan Navarez, Sherry Mitchell, Pat McCabe, and Nikki Kashkan. So we are very, very excited. Thank you all for joining us today. And I hope those of you who are in countries that are in solidarity with the United States today, we're doing something that's called No King's Day. And early on, Judith reminded us in Canada, it's No Tyrants Day because they do have a king. And, and Heidi reminded us that that's very accurate. We don't want tyrants. So in solidarity, everyone, please do what you can to make this world a better place, and let's bring matriarchy now. Thank you, everyone, and we will see you next time. Bye for now.
Bye.